I can talk a lot, so I try to pause a lot because I can
No,
always be
hey,
talking.
I mean, that's the whole reason you came highly recommended
Oh,
by
yikes.
by me looking at my list of people that I know and going, haven't talked to Kristen yet.
Yeah. Hey, no, this is great. It's one of those deals where I feel like we crossed paths with Pluralsight, but we didn't get to like co-work well. Like we didn't get to actually cross
Yeah,
paths and
yes, we
spend
didn't
time
get to
there.
co-work well. I'm glad you said it that way. Yeah, because when we did co-work, it was pretty terrible. I hear what you're
Yeah,
saying.
or yeah, few and far
Maybe?
between. I was because I was even bouncing between product management and now product ops. So I feel like once I moved to product ops, there's even less overlap with especially design leadership. So, you know, one of those
Yeah,
deals.
those losers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
those guys. No,
yeah.
I really missed working closer with design. So it's yeah, it's one thing I'm trying to bring back into my new realm and norms of product ops is like keep that bridge tight.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? We're supposed to be all working together.
That's the
But
lore.
yeah, I've
That's what
heard
they
that.
all.
Hey, speaking of, hold on. Let me try that again. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Speaking of blaming technology, could we spend a little time blaming AI, heavily air quoted AI,
Yeah.
for
Which flavors?
everything? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's what I was hoping you would explain because I think, and here's my pitch. I one, and no one's going to agree with me on this. One, we should stop calling it AI. If nothing else, or at the very least, use a serif font. Sorry,
Yep.
owls of the world.
Owls of the world. That is
It's all
actually a
your
real story with my
fault.
father.
Yeah,
My father was like, "Who's
really.
Al?"
Yeah, I exactly,
Had to explain
exactly.
that.
Who's Al, and why is Al ruining everything?
Everyone's talking about this Al guy. I'm like, "Oh, here we go." Yep.
Yep.
Uh,
Okay, so one, stop calling it AI, but saying LLMs and what's the other one? ML, yeah, MLLM, yeah, yeah. So, can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Explain it.
Explain all of it
Why
from
it's
the
all
origin.
ruining everything.
Ugh. This is the soapbox that I never know where to start or stop, honestly. But with the stopping doesn't happen. So
Yeah, no, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's like I was just commenting on this last night. I forget who I was I crossed over a post that was just saying how AI is just this whole new shield for like this corporate realm we're in where we just have to accept it and embrace it and all these other elements. And meanwhile, I wanted to peel that back a little further and talk about remember how like enshittification of everything was such a moment. And to me, I'm like, it's still here. It's still we're
But
still in this
still,
kind of
yeah.
like, yeah, we've been tearing down these standards for a while now. And I feel like
Hmm.
it was to me with AI, the timing still blows my mind that we had reached a fever pitch of some enshittification talk and all of us collectively hating chatbots. Because that's the one that hurts me the most. It's like we all agreed that chatbots were terrible and then AI got slipped in all at the same time and it got embraced. How? It still blows well, I know rhetorically it blows my mind, but it's just it's a nice confluence of all these things that we've allowed and accepted and gone with, and now it's here and it's in deep. So it's as someone who believes firmly that so much of tech is lacking connection and understanding of like human norms and basics. AI is just kind of phoning all that in. And I was thinking we were getting closer to being like, ooh, these chatbots are bad. Like these things aren't good. How do we connect again with humans? Even if you look to dating services, like all of them are going back to the wild. That was like the whole quote movement of back to the wild. And so I was like, oh, it's happening organically. People are craving human made connections. And now here we are. So, I just, to me, it's almost like we have to go through this necessary paradigm shift and feel that pain for a while before we come out the other side, but we're in deep for now. So I'm just trying to buckle up.
I mean, there's lots of reasons, of course, but based on what you were just describing, you could have, relatively speaking, it might become circular, but you can have essentially an infinite conversation with some AI. Everybody just imagine, I'm putting air quotes around AI, with some AI service, but chatbots are immediately flummoxed by the simplest requests.
Hmm.
And so it's like person. It's like IVR has been around for since the 70s. I don't know. It's been around for a long time. And it really isn't better from an interaction perspective, especially with anything that's overly complex or what the system designers would think of as edge case. Like, I need to pay my bill, but you won't let me log into my account. And then you get into the circular, and it's just like, let me talk to a person, please. Because these systems break down really quickly. But the AI model, you don't notice. It's harder to notice that it's broken.
Hmm.
It's harder to notice when it's leading you down the path that you don't want to go down or that you shouldn't be going down. That's completely incorrect. And, or maybe it is correct, but you feel like you're making progress, right? And so for me, this goes back to the I don't know, early 2000s, maybe, when the web, if you remember, we still have that parts of technology
Student connection
where,
area? What?
yeah, what?
Yeah.
Uh, where apps were starting to put in progress meters, like loading screens, and hey, I'm thinking about that, just a minute. And all of a sudden, everyone calmed the fuck down about how long it was taking because they could see that progress was being made, even if it was a lie. Like, it felt like you were like, oh, the system's thinking
Going
about this.
somewhere.
That's fine. Yeah, it's going somewhere. Something's happening. And I think that until we get to the point where we have these moments where I really can't rely on AI. Like, I've have enough evidence now that I as an individual can't rely on AI system to really guide me to a result. Like, people are going to opt to not talk to other people.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And I feel like that's bad. And I feel like the people who are making the AI stuff are like, no, this is really good. Because then you don't have to have social skills.
Therein lies the wonderful moments of why it irks me so much at the fundamentals of it. It's you know, I think about my career, how I started in software engineering side and the web development side, and I loved code. Like, that's people knew me as someone who was into code and just getting in like, oh, women in coding. Like, that was always a big part of my identity in my early career. But the more that I spent time in that space in that corner, I was like, wait a minute, I'm a deep extrovert that loves to connect people. And the more I was in those pockets, people are like, you talk a lot. Like, why don't you go towards different pockets where people want to connect more? And I'm like, maybe I should. And that led me to product. Like, the whole that notion you just scratched at is why I moved my career towards product, because I wanted to be where the discussions were, where the decisions are being made. And not to say that doesn't happen in engineering, folks. Like, I get it, but usually in the
Yeah.
stream of product development, it's a little upstream a bit. And I wanted to be there to help be like, why are we doing this? What for? Like, get back to the why and the human connections around this and the humans we're trying to serve. Because the more that I see AI being brought out by people who generally don't need or want to communicate to each other, I just get deeply uncomfortable. It's such a band-aid and such an excuse to just cop out and go straight to, like, whatever, AI told me what I needed. I don't need to actually collaborate. And then we wonder why things are getting worse for
Right.
humans. Like,
Yeah.
sure, the bots are great, but, like, humans are having a bad time. So just,
Yeah.
you know.
But okay, so you had this progression. You wanted to get to where the what's and the whys were being discussed, and not that you
Mhm.
don't care about the hows, but
Yeah,
the hows,
that's an
yeah.
undercurrent. Yeah.
Um, but you didn't choose UX. Why are
What?
you? Why did you make that smart decision?
It's funny you say that because there's actually a detour along the way. I remember it was like 2015, 16. Design thinking was like all the rage. It was like
I I
the
I thought design in that time myself. So
well, and that's the thing. Is like that there was such a trying to remember all the prominent, probably no longer existing orgs are at the forefront of it. But I just remember design thinking was a concept. It was a catchphrase, and folks were picking it up. I remember catching it in engineering spaces, and I was like, oh, these are folks that are averse to like marketing terms, design terms, UX terms, but something about design thinking was resonating. And I was at a point in my career where I was at a senior level of development and I was like, okay, I know how to code stuff. I feel confident that I can jump to any spot and code something. I want to kind of help companies connect better internally and have better conversations. And that's when design thinking was happening. And so the company I was at the time brought in a facilitator. And it was like one of those moments where I was like, I could just do this here. Like after this program's done and we've done our one time, outing with this, I could just be that facilitator. So that little blip was my bridge from engineering into more design and producty thinking spaces. Cause it was one of those like, you make the move. If it doesn't fit or we don't leverage this enough, you can go back to engineering if you want. So it's a very safe, like, go
mhm,
dabble. But I liked it a lot and I kind of stuck in that spot. And then when I knew I had to leave the company at the time, I was like, where do I apply all of this stuff in the next place? And it fell nicely into product management. So, and I could have gone, more of the design, traditional product design or UX perhaps, but that's where I like to leave that to more of the creatives. I know I'm more of the mix and I wanted to stay closer to the engineering proximity. So that was the only reason. It was nothing against UX or my design peers or anything. It's just knowing my brain better and what I can bring to the table, I think, packaged differently into some of the product roles I saw that. Now, that
yeah,
said, I still feel like I'm on a final, like, I'm only midway through where my actual true role is, like even product ops. I'm like, yeah, this is great. This checks a lot of boxes, but who knows? There's a lot that I just keep dabbling with, but you know, there was a little bit of a moment where that design thinking era bridged me out.
mhm. Yeah. Well, two things come to mind. One, we all know that UX people are assholes, um, and two,
You said it. You
that
said
what?
it.
Oh, wait a second. Dang it. Future Matthew, cut this part out.
Nah, nah.
Um,
I'll join in
I
in the
I won't.
snark of it. My
Yeah.
buddies know me well enough that I'm not dead serious.
Oh, I'm always throwing product management under the bus.
It's fair.
But one of the things I've said for pardon me years is uh, in a lot of ways, if you're doing UX at all, where you're involved in some of the research or you're doing a lot of the research, you're part of helping to shape what the strategy will look like. You're not really like fully on just solely working on elements that appear on a screen. You're doing a bit more in those roles. It really is, there's a lot of crossover with product management.
Mhm.
And the thing I've said for a long time is like product management is like UX, except people listen to you. Because
I can contest that a
you're
bit, but I respect it.
yeah. But
We
it's a
all know.
relativistic listening. Um,
Yes, yes. It's all relative to the amount of 2%
yeah,
total.
yeah. To yeah. It's so many times it's like, hey, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Okay, good
Yeah.
luck. Oh, did that happen? Did I tell you? Great.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, you put your hand on the stove again. Okay.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's what a lot of it
Hot
is.
metal, hot.
Yeah.
Which
Lessons.
apparently sharp knife sharp, as the owie on
Yeah.
my finger from last night can attest.
Oh.
But it's it's always been something to me where it's like, as much as I make fun of product management, again, it's like I know a lot of people who end up in these roles did it by accident,
Yeah. Yeah.
organically, although organic things have structure. Um, but and then they end up in these positions and they don't get a lot of support for learning
That's
how to
right.
do the job well, or right. So
Back to that
it's
structure
kind of one of
point,
those,
though.
back to that structure point.
Yeah.
So for you, like you've been making this path for yourself partly intentionally, it sounds like, with structure.
Best I can.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Best I can with
but
my
like it sounds
North
like you're
Star.
making conscious choices, right? Where I really fell into it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because
That's fair.
I started out as a tech writer, and I was getting pissed off at having to describe how to use poorly designed software.
Yeah.
And
That's your
someone said, "Well, why
radicalization
don't you
story.
go? Why, yeah, yeah, why don't you go design it?" And I was like, "All right." And then somebody
Done.
can write about how terrible I did.
Right.
Um,
Circle of life.
Circle of life. But yeah, to me, it's always been like we have these structures in place within these organizations. And one of the things that I run into, because I have this varied experience, because I've fallen into things of having been a product manager, having been in UX, and having been in research and all this stuff, service design, products, physical products, not just software. But I tend to look at them as just systems that need to be more efficient and effective for the people who are using them. And so I don't really, to my detriment, because of the way these organizations function, I have a really hard time with this delineation of word. Man, every time I do these recordings, my brain just shuts down for a moment when I'm trying to think of a word. Delineation of responsibilities with, you do this, I do this, you do this. When
Yeah.
it's really, we should all be working together toward common goals, and we have strengths and etc. And so one of the things, and this is a lead up, the longest lead up ever, because I like to preamble,
You're good. You're excited.
or as some people might say, set context.
Like context. It's good. It's helpful. Setting out the
In
buffet.
our thanks in our back and forth and setting this up, you had mentioned about AI adoption and how that goes. I'll just say it that way. When organizations don't really understand how they deliver work in the first place.
That's right.
And
That's one of my
so,
favorites. My favorite little
yeah,
nuggets that, you
yeah.
know,
And,
we just expect it to work.
I know I've said this before on the show, but, I did work for a startup that used AI in their work. They were an AI driven startup, and they were asking for a product strategy. And I said, okay, I mean, it took a bit, but here's your strategy. You won't be able to deliver on it because your organizational structure, the way you all work together, is shit.
Yep.
And I know this because all the people who work for you said it's terrible.
It wasn't even a mystery.
It wasn't even a
That's
mystery.
the
Yeah.
best part is they're just telling you this is going to be
Yeah.
garbage. And they're like, why isn't it working? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you said that, and that interested me greatly because I have experience running into these walls of like, hey, we have to have an AI solution to stand out in the marketplace of all the other people who have AI solutions who are trying to
Slap it
stand out in the
on.
marketplace, without understanding how they actually deliver on their promises to their customers.
That's right.
So, what are the problems inherent in this, and how do we get people to stop? We
Yeah.
don't. We
Honestly,
don't. But yeah.
yeah. I know that a lot of this is so rhetorical because we've already, what do you consider the time frame so far? Because whenever I talk to people about AI, like I struggle because AI is not new, it's not novel, it's
Mm-mm.
not a brand new concept. It's how we're talking about it in this time through the lens of OpenAI and ChatGPT, like as the precursors. It's a marketing flare, basically. But I would think we're in like what, the third year of the hype machine of it at its like peak hype. Because I remember
Yeah.
it's I'm trying to think of like where do we start that line for like the current context? Because when I have friends who have masters in this stuff from decades ago, it's like, yeah, it's not
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
AI.
None of this stuff is new. Okay.
No.
Yeah. So I think that I draw lines, a line that has been drawn probably in the past, 12 to 18 months of you're now not getting a choice whether or not you want
Mm,
to interact with this stuff.
there we go.
Whereas
Okay,
before
I do
that,
like
you had
that
a
line.
choice.
Yeah.
And then probably before that, it was, you know, and I'm making this up on the spot. I haven't really thought about it exactly like this, but it's kind of like DARPA and the World Wide Web. The stuff existed, but who had access to it and what it was being used for was more on that academic side. And then it became more on the commercial side, whether or not they were making money off of it. And by whether or not, I mean not, um, or profit on it. They were making money. And so like right now, I think in those three phases of it's really more of an academic pursuit. Not that it doesn't have some commercial application, but it's limited commercial. And then there's the more broad commercial, which is like you can get it on the web or you interact through the web, because of course all these apps on your phone are just shells with web being served up in them.
Website hooks. Yep.
And now it's the next phase is this: you have to opt out of using it
If you can
because it's
find
shoved
it.
into everything. Yeah, if you can
Yeah.
find it. And then the next phase will be you don't get a choice whether or not to opt out. I don't think we're there yet with things,
At
but
least not
those are
all
those.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's not an elegant delineation between these epochs. I don't know, these
It
stages,
helps me
but
though, because I do like to
that's how
set
I think about
that
it.
it's a good notion to set, just because when the conversation starts, it's like people are thinking they frame their mindset from different starting points, and I'm definitely looking at that. You know, I was hoping in the first phase that when we're just out tinkering and exploring, right? Like I thought that that was enough information for us to go, okay, this needs some love and it needs some work if we're going to make this a mandate. And nope, we just slid right into the mandates in some pockets. My attention goes to more like the Microsofts because it gets baked into the OS, it gets baked into the licenses. And to me, that was an interesting watershed moment that I was watching closely because I was like, oh, they're making it into their gravy train of licensing. That's something that usually is untouchable. It's something that is just a given that people are going to buy up Microsoft accounts and corporate levels and enterprise levels. But once I saw people complaining online about how they had to find that loophole to not have AI in their license, I was like, oh, okay, now we're starting to shift gears. This is where people are starting to push back, and you can't just slide this stuff in as a mandate as easily. And so I do feel like we're deep in that experiment. And that's where I was like, oh, we're putting the hand on the stove. Let's see what happens next at this corporate executive, enterprise level. And now that I'm watching I think about OpenAI and Microsoft and Google, like as if we're watching them kind of scrabble for that top position, Microsoft's, I think, taken some more hits because they made that hard decision to put it in the OS. So, that mandate part, coming back to like how they got there, which was the original point of your question, is, you know, we started with the tinkering and then Microsoft is picking on them a little bit more. They were one that were like, okay, we're going to have all of our Microsoft users like start to tinker with this first and see how their companies go. And then that let them build up the stats and the numbers of how many licenses and people were using. And it's like, but you baked it in. So that circular funding and model of data is one thing that just irks me in this time. It's just all circular, whether it's NVIDIA with OpenAI and all the, between the chips and the providers. And it's just everyone shaking hands with $20 over and over again, just saying we're making tons of money. And it is working. I mean, working in terms of stock and money and opportunity to cash in, it's been wild just watching the effect with the stock market and all the people that are gaining so much profit from this. I mean, I even watched the NVIDIA Q3 earnings report because I was so intrigued by this, a massive hype that I wanted to understand, like, is it hitting a point? Is there a ledge? Is there a cliff? Is there anything? What is this all building to? Because I'm still looking at a tool that I think is getting slapped into companies that don't know how to work together. So that's back to the premise of, and it was the MIT study that came out where it was like 95% of companies are failing at AI. And it was like such a headline for a while. And it's back to your premise of, if you don't know how to work together and you don't know how work is done in your company, AI is not going to fix that. So the competing headwinds of just make AI in your workforce somehow with this circular funding and model of usage across these big dogs. And the fact we're still skipping the point of, hey, if you learned how to communicate with each other and collaborate, this would all be a lot easier. But we're just doing it all at once and saying it's great. And I don't know how to sidestep that. It's something I've tried. I've tried really hard. I don't like when I'm a stick in the mud type of person, especially with tech. It's why I'm in this career. I love the new stuff. I love the innovation and I love like the brandy new opportunities to put things together in new ways. But the whole AI front of it is still, to me, missing at its core just the why. Why are we
Right.
doing this? There's so many other ways I could think to solve some of these problems than shoving it in I like when people call AI a box of dice. Like, that's my favorite. It's just like you just go rattle a box and see what comes back. Like, I think if more people envisioned that mentally, it would be a little easier to stomach like what's coming back out. But too many, we're getting into the godlike theories, we're getting into the therapy sessions, we're getting into the companionship, and we're getting to the root of it all. People want to control something that doesn't talk back. Let's get back into that psyche conversation because that's a lot of what
Right.
AI is providing people. It's like, nope, you don't want a dog. You want something that's just going to tell you you're amazing and give you everything you want. That's just something you get to go talk about at therapy, not with AI. Like
Right.
but it's fueling all of these worst components of our personalities in tech. And I don't, the only way to stop it is let it go full circle on itself. And that's going to suck. It's going to be painful for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's this is gonna get worse before it gets better.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um
Steeled.
yeah. It's funny funny. I say that a lot. I don't
Oh, I
really
say
mean
funny all the
funny.
time when it's dark
Yeah.
stuff. So I feel like I
Yeah.
knew where you're heading.
Um so one of the places that I've worked in the past 10 years decided that they needed to have an AI something because their competitors either had it or were in the process of delivering it. And that was the reason. It was fear, right? We don't want them to have a competitive advantage over us. So we also have to have this thing. And this kind of goes back to my, especially when I'm doing consulting work and someone asks for a competitive analysis, I really want to get to why, but
Yep, there
what
it is.
decision are they hoping to make or support by knowing that information? I'm not saying never do a competitive analysis. But what I see come out of them is, oh, they have that. Well, we better have that too.
Chasing table
N-
stakes.
yeah. And never
Yeah.
really knowing, oh, is that working out for them?
Right.
How much have they sunk into this and they're treading water hoping that something else of their business is going to pay off this L on the P&L sheet for that part of the company. And of course, the entry of this company into this space was to make essentially a chatbot that accessed all the data that they had available, and you could do stuff on the site, I guess, that was a bit more interactive than just searching. And I thought, you've already got this field that people type in, like more than browsing around the site, they use
Mhm.
search. You could have integrated into that and let people use natural language stuff and bring back more natural language answers and really just made your search work better. But I feel like that the the AI chatbot is the hello world of AI software development,
Right.
where it's like, all right, this is an easy thing to make that we can get into production and get people using.
Say we did.
Say we have an AI solution and we can learn from this. It's like, one, do you know what you want to learn?
What do you want to
Um,
learn? Yeah.
yeah. And it's this circular logic. Everything's just
Hmm.
loops. Why is
So
everything
many
loops?
loops. Endless loops.
Endless loops. So what have you seen or what have you done that has interrupted the loop? And it's
Ugh.
okay. It's okay. I'm not gonna hold you to anything if you say nothing.
No, so as I
But it makes for
mentioned,
better television if you say
it,
yes, it's something and it's amazing.
well, a third company I burned down. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But no, the real reality is I try really hard to just find those reinforcing nuggets because I get it. I've spent my entire career in this industry. I know you don't just throw your arms together and say, "Well, if we hold tight, we'll fight back and wait." Like it's not. We've already lost too much of the grounds. There's a lot of people that are into this. They're finding pockets, and there are people that I like deeply respect too that are finding really like interesting ways to use some of these tools. And that's why I do like I love that we started this conversation with protecting like LLMs and machine learning from this AI broad stroke because there are absolutely really cool uses of this technology that isn't just the crappy AI gimmick that we're being sold across everything. So I do try to like look for those. Those are kind of my loop breakers of okay, let's water this down a bit and focus in on what actually rises to the top here. What is actually helpful to us and does buy us time that we can actually report, time gained without concerns for accuracy. Like there's these I try really hard just to focus on those little nuggets here and there. And I have found some along the way because when people see a stick in the mud type too, they just think you don't know anything about it. Because that's always the big pull or swing. I'm like, well, you haven't even tried it. So you can't talk about it or just hate on it. It's like, no, no, I know what this is doing. I understand. I have followed along. I mentioned I'm watching NVIDIA's Q3
Right.
earnings, which is just like
Yeah.
excessive amount of curiosity towards this because it's going to steer our industry. And so I don't know. I try to find not so much the blue breakers, but just the things that don't suck as bad. The things that
Uh-huh.
actually I can sleep at night knowing that we're going in a direction and using that doesn't feel like you're burning down a rainforest somewhere. And I know what I just said will key people off into a whole discussion about energy consumption and how it's really about the training, not the actual usage. And I just even just knowing that every word of the conversation is a landmine along the way is another reason why I'm like,
Yeah.
how do we bring this back to just talking about working better together? And the more I can have that conversation with people, especially the ones that are like frothy mouthed fans about it all, we actually start to get somewhere. And more than not, I think the loop breaker for me is just the reassurance that this isn't working the way that they want it to. And something about that. Maybe that's my cockiness in this, but I'm like, you can't fool this many people over time. Like, usually when things just work well, it sells itself, right? And so I'm watching these
Right.
pushes and these shoves, and I'm like, that's going to make it worse for many. So I don't know. I think it's so much one of those deals where I'm actually in an energy conservation mode versus trying to be like the breaker of loops like I have in the past, because I can't help that it's gonna settle itself in ways with a little bit more time. Just let these big dogs run fast. Let them go in through all the walls. There's gonna be a wall somewhere that is gonna finally maybe course correct us. Now that said, the big dogs are built out in a way that if they fail, all those data centers they have, everything they've put all this money into, there's a fallback contingency plan. I get that. It's the little dogs that are trying to ride the wave along the way that are going to get crushed by this.
Right. Yeah.
But that's also, to me, the course correcting must happen situation that until it does, the world goes around and around and around on this front. So the loop breaking is a little bit of patience. It's a little bit of find the nuggets in the noise, signal versus noise kind of stuff. And just trying so hard to honor the original technology from the hype technology.
Hmm.
Because I remember even, wasn't it Apple when they backed out and they had the AI talk, but then they're like, no, it's our Apple Assist, or like the Apple, they changed it around so they weren't saying AI, but it was very
Right. But now it still
AI-ish.
spells AI because they call it
It still
Apple
spells AI,
Intelligence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Apple
Yeah.
Intelligence, that's what, thank you. That was it.
Yeah.
Apple
Yeah.
Intelligence, and I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Thanks.
Still the
Thanks,
same
kids in
one.
marketing. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's just, when I watch companies do that kind of pivot, or even Google. Google's been interesting to watch a little bit because I can't call them a dark horse. It's Google, but they haven't been as in the forefront for the past couple of years as other names. And now lately, all I hear is Gemini. I just hear people talking about Gemini, how it's growing fast and OpenAI is threatened by it. And I'm like, all right, well, if we can at least take the heat off, take the burner down from high for a minute, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Because I don't see the stuff going away. I mean, we have crypto, we have NFTs, we still have stuff from our past that to me were loops that should have been broken fast. And they weren't. I mean, hell, some people still love to talk about like 3D TVs are going to make it. Like tech tends to be sticky, right? There's still always a
Yeah.
hope somewhere. So I think for a lot of it, it's energy conservation, figuring out the areas that don't suck, and then watching the big dogs take the big bets, go all in, and whether or not they win or lose in between. Because Ah, it just feels like a freight train that maybe it's my point in my career, but I'm tired of laying out in front of it anymore too, where it's like you can bash about it, but it's going to run you over.
Yeah. I think I'm hopeful that it's not going to run me over, but it's probably because I look at this as the same as, like, we'll just pick on loops, as all the other loops that we've gone through. Like just a moment ago we talked about Apple Intelligence versus whatever, and how they sort of, like, I think you said backpedaled, or they redirected.
To me, it felt like a bit of a backpedal, but you never know with Apple. Like they're still hiding in the wings,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it
It
felt
it
very
made me
intentional.
it made me think about how they changed their marketing from calling them laptops to notebook computers, because they
Mm,
were getting so hot. People were having them on their laps because they're
burn their skin
laptops, and
off.
they were burning themselves. That may be an
McDonald's
apocryphal
coffee
story,
moment.
but I really like it. Um,
Yeah.
but that's just like, we'll just change the narrative, but not change the behavior. And eventually they figured out how to heat sink things. But there are machine learning systems, LLMs, whatever AI is, that really do show promise, help
Oh,
people
yeah,
with their
absolutely.
work, although that is also having some impact in making
Uh-huh.
them less good at their work. And those are good things, and I don't want to break them down. I don't necessarily want to break down or stop, interrupt, whatever, all the other stuff that's going on. I just kind of going back to the premise of like, y'all don't understand how your company works.
Uh-huh.
Y'all don't understand how you deliver on your promises to your customers, but you're going to shoehorn this new technology in and just hope for the best.
Uh-huh.
And that just so rarely works.
It just so
And
rarely
also, what
works.
does hope for the best mean? I don't know. I continue to have this frustration. It's mostly with people in leadership positions in these companies. I understand that they are being pressured by their boards or whatever to deliver blah, blah, blah. I get it. But it really does seem like they're not. I have two thoughts trying to come out. One is that the way I view most C suites are once they get into those positions and they've been in them for a few months, like their whole raison d'etre is to
Uh-huh.
maintain equilibrium and not to upset anything.
Well,
But then we're throwing,
equilibrium, or is it spend reduction? I feel like that's like one of those two things. Like, keep it happy or make it even more efficient, which usually efficient is a loaded term.
yeah, efficient for the stock price, not
Uh-huh.
for,
Yeah, that's all
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Not dare the
um,
people inside. Mm-mm.
I don't know. It's like, I don't think that we have the right people in these positions of leadership who, not that they need to fully understand to be leaders, but like, I don't know, they just,
Well, I heard an analogy once, just to like piggyback what you're getting at. Uh,
what I'm trying
as
to
we
get at.
both, well, no, I mean, I pick up what you're saying. It's like we have, if you think about, we'll speak just generally, but in the world where a lot of private equity is buying up a lot of tech,
Yeah.
you are no longer relying on these net new leaders and these acquisitions to be like product leaders. They're usually profit leaders that are just trying to consolidate, create, and expand their portfolio. And when I heard the comparison that it's like asking a real estate agent to explain the structure of the home, it's like, ah, yeah, that's right. We're looking and asking people who are focused on valuation and are focused on, just the numbers, where to go with this product and how it can best serve the humans in the home in that analogy, right? And it's just like you're not gonna get that. You're gonna get the hand wavy, yeah, we'll just go that way and that should be fine, put a
Yeah.
little paint on it. Nah, like that's so once I see that more and more, and that's when I go back to my mention of the enshittification of tech. That started a while back, where companies are like, screw long-term stability, screw like the good, excuse me, good architecture. We're just going to focus on squeezing what we got and just blasting features out like a feature factory and maximizing profits. And I feel like that started long before some of these other hypey terms came in. Like AI just feels like the fourth round of this that we're still not learning this lesson, which is why I've gotten more into a steeled approach because I'm like, oh, I thought of three other texts before this that I thought would like show, like, hey, you fell headfirst into that. Wasn't a good time. And it didn't change anything. We're just like, oh, next shiny thing. So it's like, this is never going to stop. Okay, well, for those of us that are at the IC level or trying to be that middle management or everyone in between, that's not a C suite or someone that's buying up these companies, you're fundamentally looking at it differently than those up top are. And I don't mean to like paint that broad of a stroke, but I kind of do because I have yet to see. I personally look for it. I'm like, where are these, product led, tippy top, but also well invested, because
Hmm.
even just thinking about all the funding in Silicon Valley and it just seems like a money grab every direction of tech. And I think that's the biggest heartbreak for me at this point in my career because it's just like you think about what got me into tech and how inspired I was to connect with people and the power of the internet, like all of these whimsical things. And now here I am. I'm just like, ugh, we're just going into the next cycle of human
Hmm.
affecting gross slop. And we're just going to pat ourselves on the back for it. And I think what's worse too on top, just to call out everyone in the industry, is we try to separate ourselves as us versus them. It's like, no, but we're building it. We can't, we're in it. If you're in this industry and you're collecting a paycheck and you're still griping about it all, like we're still in it. So what are we doing? So it's
Hmm.
just, it's all of us have to kind of find that line and accept that we are all on a ride that is maximizing profit and money and stockholder value and holding up the US economy, by the way, right now, which is scaring me the most. It's like this whole AI bubble is just this wonderful little weird float that the rest of our economy's hiding behind. And I just, what do we do with that? We're just- we're expecting an outcome that I don't see all the variables for it to get to. Ugh.
Yeah. It's everybody's in just keep swimming mode,
Yeah,
and
we're all paddling,
it's
just
yeah, yeah,
but, and we convince ourselves that is part of the gig. I know I sure do. Like, I like tech because I have a very scattered mind that likes to go into a lot of different rabbit holes. And it's the one industry that could satiate that so far that I've found. And that's why I love it. There's no shortage of something new every day. There's new roles each year. And companies are on a wicked 2-year cycle where it's like, it's usually 2 years and out and you move on to the next one. Right. So it's just always, it's a constant move fast reminder. But I think we lean into that too much as an excuse versus a pattern that, hey, maybe we should check in on that and break it.
yeah,
So yeah, this has to just
yeah,
kind of roll its cycle for a bit. But man, it's not gonna burn the people that could change a lot of it quickly. I think that's the other frustrating part.
yeah. Well, just as a not as a suggestion, but as a something to consider. For all the reasons that you love tech, you may, except for one, uh, you may love community organizing, because
Yeah,
talk about going all over every which way every day, solving things, you know, like
every direction.
yeah, the difference, the one thing is the paycheck size.
Of course, yeah.
Um,
The
yeah,
wonderful world of juxtaposing nonprofit to the tech
right.
industry. It's a real thing. Usually, when the
Yeah,
things matter most, they're not getting that good of a paycheck. I've maintained that outlook.
yeah.
Lol,
Yeah,
sob.
and that's to me is like, while I'm in this, to the extent I'm in it anymore, but while I'm in this, how do I, like, I say interrupt, but how do I guide people toward making decisions that kind of go back to I mean, you mentioned this a moment ago, like, and I'll put in my terms of, I wanted to do amazing things with technology to help people live amazing lives. And it's that last part that I feel like gets lopped off for a lot of people. Not that they, if you ask them, they'd be like, of course I want to do that. And they're being honest. But I don't think we get to do that very often. I know it happens, but the frequency level, the impact level,
Visibility into it. Yep.
yeah, yeah, it's like we get to do cool shit with technology. Well, I mean, you could have done that in your garage and Radio Shack would still be in business.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's
can
where do we
we,
put our attention?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's that last piece that I've really trying to have been focusing on. Well, that's a terrible sentence. Um,
Eh, gotcha.
like, for, I don't know, maybe the past 9 years doing my own thing, and um, it's it doesn't sell well, you know.
Well, and that's unfortunately back to
Fix
the
it,
whole premise.
fix it.
Yeah,
No,
right. Let's just fix that part. Oh, it's back to the doesn't make it money, right? That's just
yeah,
if all of tech is just looking at value and the consolidation and acquisitions of everything folding into one big bad monopoly, then our soulful search for purpose is going to be pretty choppy. And you're absolutely right, though. I mean, I think back 10 years when we started a nonprofit that was teaching people how to code and do all like that was the most connected to my local community I had felt since. And, plot twist, it grew too fast and the organization got off the rails with, just having to deal with regulation and financials for a small group that grew up really fast without, just a bunch of volunteers doing stuff. So again, like that strangulation by profit was the death knell that took it all down. And so I think that really comes down to it as like that notion of, well, are you trying to make money or are you trying to make lives better? Because those aren't always uh, on the same pathway, unfortunately. And, I, what I like about, and this is, a billion asterisks about what I'm about to say, I try to find the things I like about AI as a catalyst. And I think that's where I try to look at it as what is it bringing forward that we didn't anticipate that is innovative around it and in reaction to it. And I think there's a lot to chew on in that discussion that makes me feel a little slightly better. Doesn't change that we have to go on this path and probably off the rails for a bit, but even just the discussion about renewable energy, like we're in such an interesting time with renewables and just watching this boon in part service to figuring out how do we power these 5 billion data centers that we're building up, how this is an economic boon for construction and trades, building all these data centers and all this hardware and all the innovation I'm seeing with just even how we cool everything, how all the power that gets transferred between each box is getting more wild. And I'm like, okay, these artifacts that are coming out of the woodwork to support this ridiculous notion, those are going to stick around. There's something about that watershed moment of heading in towards like we're forcing more renewables now. We're getting lower on the coal usage. Like, okay, if this is the weird Trojan horse that we have to ride in to get to some of these things, because we sure as hell couldn't
Right.
say, hey, people don't have water or lights on. And that didn't do anything. That just made people go, oh, that's sad. But, oh, but what about this AI thing? Oh, you want to power that? Okay, we need this. I'm not trying to credit AI, but I do think we're a human
Right.
species that needs a shiny object of some sort to get our butts in gear. And those are kind of little nuggets. Oh, and back to your community building notion. I'm really, really, really enjoying watching various little towns and areas push back on tech because tech's finding ways to loophole with whether it's through their city councils or through tax rebates, through all these different pockets where they're like, well, if you just let us build this giant data center that's going to trash this small town, we'll give you some like 30 jobs or something. Or there's some promises. And it never comes to fruition, rarely. And
Mhm.
I'm watching communities follow that pattern. And so between like the renewables that are happening, the cities that are pushing back on big tech and just making it so they can't just bulldoze and do whatever we want, I'm getting kind of hopeful. I'm like, these are the conversations that help to educate people more and see that this isn't some glorious tech time where they're going to take care of us. No, it's deeply exploitative. It's deeply profit driven, and people are catching on. I can think of 2 instances. One was in Michigan with Microsoft. They got the town in I forget the name of the town in Michigan, but they pushed back on Microsoft. Microsoft had to kind of scrap their plans, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, amazing." And
Uh-huh.
then there's another one in Mississippi. Mississippi had I have to look back on the November town halls because again, I'm going to the woodwork of seeing these town halls too because I just want to see what is exchanged, what's discussed, what are they picking up and learning and pushing back, and how are they successful in that? Because even these small, like, rural towns are just like, "Hey, this doesn't seem like it's actually gonna benefit us long term. Maybe in the forefront, you're gonna give us some $80 million tax number." And then my third favorite example is Chicago. The mayor of Chicago, he's starting to put in more to tax tech because he knows the government's not the path to go right now. So he's like, "Screw it. We're gonna hit the tech dogs because Chicago's a big tech hub." So they're putting in more policy that says, hey, if you want to be a tech hub here and you're of X amount, then you got to pay this. You got to help build this city back to what helped build you. And so with that community focus element, I'm seeing more and more of that at larger scales that might actually be a net positive in the long run. But it's taken so much time and pain to get to this point where people are like, oh, this isn't a good idea, actually, but I'll take it. It's kind of what I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching and wanting to amplify and show through examples. Let's not be the next, what wasn't it, Memphis with Grok and X? Like that was a very loud example of like, that sucks for the community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's
Yeah.
going to come
Let's
again.
not have that for us. Yeah.
Shout out to Buffalo
Yeah.
with Tesla. Yeah. That's the next one where I'm like, watch what you're doing. It's happening again.
What are they doing
But
there?
yeah, from what I recall, and someone might be like, Kristen does not have. I just knew that there was an ongoing battle in Buffalo about a Tesla warehouse and like what the future is going to be and what do we do with that. And I'm thinking about Memphis. I'm thinking about all those other examples where it's like it's not the net positive that you've been sold every time. And same with Amazon in Rochester. We had a moment with Amazon out here, and I'm in the land of tech relics. I got Xerox 2 miles from me, so it's really hard to put the wool over my eyes when I see really cool tech because it's like teaching people a PDLC. It's like there's still the point where you have to sunset it, and we never
Yeah.
talk about that part. When is it
God.
time to retire it, to
So
stop
right.
this track? And
Yeah.
that's just when you live next to it and you physically see it. God, we have to really rethink these things and think about the full cycle and what it looks like. So that's my soapbox on that one.
Well, if there's ever room on that soapbox, I stand there with you. So it's all right. Well, I always appreciate a good soapbox. Let's switch gears
Mhm. Yeah.
and let's do 7 plus or minus 2 questions. So these questions, there's no guardrails on them. So I gotta think of a better way to say that. But like whatever comes to mind is the right answer. Personal, professional, whatever. And you can say, Matthew, that's a dumb question. I will not answer that.
I'm gonna treat this like improv classes. Like those are my
Yeah.
learning how to
Okay.
be more
Great.
just impulsive with it. Let's go with it.
All right. Great. First question. Who did you help recently and how did it make you feel?
Ugh. uh, obviously this one immediately snaps into a personal. But I have people in my life that I attract because I see people have gone through wild backstories or they come from roots that either have deep conditioning of some sort. And I feel like I'm just fascinated by folks that have managed to break those cycles, kind of back to our loop breaking tendency. I really love finding people that have broken a loop and continue to find loops to break in their world and unlearn and relearn. And so one pal that comes to mind is one that I know has been in a lot of deep, dark loops and just being a support system for listening and being heard and being able to just verbally process everything, I think is something that I feel like I was helping. But, that's one of those like can't trust narrator maybe. But that's the first one that comes to my head is anytime I can see a buddy who is going through a deep unlearning and relearning cycle, I like to be that friend that's nearby.
And next question. What and maybe this past hour has already been the answer, but what's your least favorite thing about your profession?
Oh. That one's tricky because I always joke that my job is one of those that's like, when IT's just working, like your computer just works, your network just works, then your IT is doing a good job. Like I actually pride myself on being that quiet success of like, well, did this happen seamlessly? Okay, I'm doing my job. But I think the trickier part that I'm still trying to grapple with, and this is where it's like the job security, so I have to be careful, but it's just the fact that I'm constantly fighting that resistance to collaborate. And when so much of my gig is getting people to is building bridges between those worlds that don't want to collaborate, like that is the job, but it's also just like, why? Why can't this would be so much faster if you just did you and I'm gonna quote one of my buddy's favorite he had a hypothetical book that he's written. And he's always said the title of it is what happened when you talk to them? So that's just what that core reminder that you're just always fighting that notion and that resistance to collaborate is just very painful. But the rest, I just try to spin and try to remind myself that that is the gig. If this works seamlessly, this gig wouldn't exist and we would carry on to something else to chew on.
Um,
Yeah.
all right. All right. Next question. Next question. What's the most beautiful thing you've seen this week that had nothing to do with a screen?
Oh, you caught me on that one. Okay. Good catch. Good catch. Had nothing to do with the screen. I was going to make fun of myself on a game I'm playing between Steam Deck and my new rig that I got. And the graphics difference is night and day, but that's the screen. So I will skip that one. Uh,
Okay.
um, most beautiful thing. I'm trying to. So I have a near 3-year-old son, and I think usually my more overwhelmed moments in life come from something that he's either done or just like the tiny moments where I'm like, "You're adorable." So I keep kind of going back to something like that. There's little moments and like it'll be right before bedtime when he's looking up at his little stars in his room, and he'll just look over and smile, and that's just stuff like that. Just all the crap that I gripe about, all this stuff that I complain about, the politics of the world, it doesn't matter for 4 seconds. And so those are usually my beautiful moments right now.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the new gaming stuff is this morning when I was thinking about recording this, I thought, "Oh, we should have done this playing a game together
Anytime.
instead of like this." Like cuz
I just
I
I was actually rushing, I was a minute late getting set up to, just going through the loops, but I picked up that Claire whatever Expedition
Claire
33,
Obscura.
Obscure, yeah, that's I picked up that one, and I was trying to beat a boss, like, 5 minutes before we were supposed to meet up, and I was like, "I'm gonna get this boss to come."
Oh
So,
my
yeah, if you
god.
ever wanna play a game,
That's
that
that's
would be a way to do it.
this is perfect. We'll do a part 2 at some point.
Yes.
Because I've done these I did one with Elizabeth Bacon where we rode
Yeah.
motorcycles.
Oh my
And
gosh, that's great.
so why not mix it up?
I
Anyway,
That's one area that would be tap into another space that I have a lot to talk about, so
all right. So next question: what's a decision that you've made that prioritized business goals over user goals, and how did you feel about it?
ooh, this one does tap into AI a little bit. Just knowing that in this point of people's career, you kinda have to find some way to check a box of, like, "I used AI here and here."
Hmm.
There was a bit of that notion in my career path of, like, "Okay, what can I at least show that is capable of AI that I don't feel like is derailing us from true collaboration?" And so choosing to think with an AI first approach just to check that box is usually that corporate moment of I'm trying really hard to, appease the AI gods, but also not make it suck for the humans. But I just, because it's AI, I'm usually biased to thinking it's not going to be great at first. But I will own that I have managed to find a handful of instances where I'm like, you know what? That's helps. That little nugget, very tiny deterministic use case helped a little bit, but for me, that's always leading with the corporate goal, and it's just, nah, I I'm trying to balance it all, you know?
Hey, at
Stick in the
least you're
mud,
trying to
man.
balance it all.
Yeah, I just don't I really don't like that notion of people looking at isn't it like the Luddite movement too? Like, people are saying that there's such a binary between people who just don't like AI and people who are just frothy mouth about it, and I'm trying to cut more of that spectrum so that we can have real conversations about it and not just be, "Oh, you hate it," or, "Oh, you love it." Like, there's just so much in between, and there's so much that we can chew on and learn from it in between. So, but for now, if I lead with AI at any point in my life, it is, to me, a corporate endeavor.
Next question: who
Mm?
should I talk with next?
Ooh, that's interesting. Uh, well, wide range of topics? Are you trying to keep on a certain thread? Because that helps me tunnel out.
No,
Did you ever get to
no
meet
guard,
uh,
no guardrails on this stuff. Whatever comes to mind is the right answer.
one that I'm gonna hype queen about because I adore the work is Kat Hicks. Did you ever talk to Kat Hicks from
I never
originally
did.
Pluralsight? Okay, that is one to put down. I love her work. It's it's getting back to that scratch that I love of just how do we keep humans in the forefront and the way that we think together and getting into the nuances of cognitive science and all the ways that we connect. And I just people who scratch at that. Now she does keep a more dev centric focus with her work, but it's still the same tailored theme that I appreciate. Same with Kat O'Neill's another one that I hype tweet about a lot. Kat or Kate, geez, I just said Kat. So I said Kat again. Kate O'Neill, KO Insights website. And she drops wonderful books that are keeping humans at the forefront, but acknowledging that tech is going to come hard and fast. We got to find ways to work with it, but how do we not lose ourselves in the center of it? So basically, folks that keep that nuance in play are ones that I try to be like and gravitate towards and keep that principle in my mind myself. They're just
Worthy.
lovely minds. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
All right. Imagine it's a year from now. What do you hope to not be carrying anymore?
Not be carrying, did you say? Or
Carrying.
caring? Yeah. Um, oh, my head's in the tech space of this. I really hope that we have a bit of a, I don't want to say like a breaking change moment, but I do hope that a year from now we can say that we've learned a bit more about all this and we've shifted to a gear that makes 2% more sense. And even with that, I think I'll find some optimism in that. But if we're a year from now and it's still building and it's still ramping up, oh, that'll just be sad. So I'm hoping that I won't have to carry this soapbox around a year from now and we can shift to different discussions about it. And hopefully it's about the renewables. Hopefully it's about the communities that have learned to push for better from the tech industry. And hopefully it's that we've broken that mindset that our next God is going to be in this AI model. Like these are things I hope we can poke at for the next year, at least.
All right. Let's stop talking.